wallet that he had opened and closed so many times that it almost was about to come apart at the seams. His mother apparently had sent it to him when he had told them that he wanted to become an actor, because her name was on the back. Her name was inscribed on the back of it. And his father, I'm sure, was devastated when he told them that he wanted to be an actor, because his actor was a preacher. And he thought Dee should go into the ministry because his heart was so good. And he really was a spiritual man. And he just thought, oh, what a shame, what a shame. Dee had a ministry. It just wasn't in a church. Anyhow, this is what was in his wallet. Most of his friends never knew this until Terry Rio's biography of Dee came out. Oh, by the way, Adam said mine is a biography. It is not a biography. There is a biography. Mine's a personal memoir. There is a biography called From Sawdust to Stardust. I highly recommend it. The two books are like apples and oranges. I mean, the redundancy of material is almost non-existent, except for a couple of places in her book where she quotes my book or quotes me. But otherwise, it is a wonderfully, wonderfully researched. Not only do you find out about the times in which Dee grew up during the World War II era, and he lived in Long Beach, and what it's like to live in a Navy town during a war. It's just phenomenal. It's really, really good. But again, don't expect a Star Trek book, because the only negative reviews were, I didn't hear anything about these Star Trek days. You know, I think people know about these Star Trek days. This is a book about what it was like to be DeForest Kelley during the hungry years before Star Trek came along, and yet how gracious and charming and wonderful he always remained. And boy, I tell you what, when you guys came along to become his fans, that was nirvana for him, because he had struggled for many, many, many years just to keep a roof on their house. So, anyhow. This is what was in his wallet. The actor's prayer. Oh God, here I am in my dressing room with the door shut. I am alone with you. Cannot an actor be God's man? Convention classes me and my fellows among the loose and thoughtless, so you are my secret. I triumph inwardly to find you here and to taste the mystic joy of your friendship. While the world suspects not, you teach me subtle ways to resist despair, to master my passions, to heal unworthy weakness. The rare medicine of your presence is for me, too, as well as for the cloistered monk or the meditating scholar. Teach me to be great among the many who are content to be called great. Let me be an unusual person because of that simplicity of heart and lovableness of nature that I learned from you. And here's when Dee actually wrote. It's very short. You can memorize it. Jesus, help me as I grow old. Don't let me have to be told what to do or how to be. Guide me gently to eternity. These two artifacts are DeForest Kelley in microcosm. In a world that so often seemed to be spinning out of control, Dee Kelley was a soft place to fall. At a convention, in a grocery store, at home. He truly believed in all of you. He believed in your dreams, and he encouraged it. He wanted that hopeful thing to always go, and I think he'd want you to continue to reflect what you sensed in him. Just keep passing the DeForest Kelley love along. If you do that little bit, the world will continue to change for the better. So, are there any questions? Yes?
Did you meet and have any interaction with B. Joe Trimble?
I have never met B. Joe Trimble. Is that awful? I've never met her. No.
And she was a huge...
I know. In fact, I was involved in that letter writing campaign that kept Star Trek on, and she was the one who started that. Oh, I wanted to say, I was in Seattle yesterday at Planet Expo talking about Dee, and at the end I asked if anybody in the audience was influenced by Dee's portrayal as Dr. McCoy, if anyone was influenced to enter the profession they are now in, any kind of a helping profession, doctors, lawyers, social workers, nurses, teachers, if any of the fans were inspired by Dee. and 20 people stood up. I'm wondering, are there any people here who are in the career they are in now as a result of having been inspired by Dee? I would love it if you would stand up. Thank you. Dee thought the legacy of Star Trek was wonderful, but he said, you know what? There's nothing deader than a dead actor. And to think that something I did inspired people to go on and to become what I will call little McCoy clones, he says, I can't imagine any finer legacy for an actor to leave. So he used to sign, a lot of doctors would actually write him and say, I'm going to study medicine because of Dr. McCoy, and then 8 years down the road, they get a letter saying, I graduated, copy of the certificate. And he would always send them an autographed photo that said, to the real McCoy, R-E-A-L McCoy, from the real McCoy, R-E-E-L McCoy. And I don't mind telling you, they put those up in their offices, and yeah, it was awesome. So, any questions or comments, or has anybody read the book already? 5-star reviews? Okay. Thank you. Yes. Come on up. Do you want to? Not desperately, no. If I come down, would you? Don't tell me you have a story and not tell us, because one of the neatest things about coming to these conventions is hearing these stories, stories that I didn't know. And I'll tell you another couple stories after this. Come on up. You're from England?
Yes.
What's your name?
Lynn.
Lynn.
Yep. The book that you mentioned, From Stardust to Sawdust to Stardust, the English convention that's mentioned there, that was my convention. So this is a funny story. We went out for dinner with Forrest Kelly and his wife, Carolyn, and it was at night and it had been raining. It's England. And the hotel that the convention was in, we were crossing quite a major road, half the depth of the one over there. And my friend who was on the committee with me, she slipped and grazed both knees. Both knees were bleeding, but the traffic lights had changed, so everybody rushed on, Dee and everybody else, and I stopped to help her. We arrived at the hotel, the restaurant, which was a Chinese restaurant, and she got blood and she ripped all the tights and things. And we went to the ladies, mopped her up, came back. Caroline said, are you all right? You know, is everything okay? And we said, oh, yes, it's fine. Dee reached across, picked up the salt cellar and went, that's better.
Some of the most touching things, by the way, this is like my third convention. I'm used to being where you are, and I went to an awful lot of conventions that he was at. And some of the most touching stories, there was this one in Denver where this lady stood up, and she said, you don't know me from Adam, Mr. Kelly, but I grew up in a horrendous, horrendous family situation. And she told us what that horrendous family situation was. And she said, just to have something to cling on to, something to hope for, I kind of adopted you as my father. And it basically saved my sanity and kept me alive. And she said, I just wonder if you would mind if I gave you a hug. And he put out his arms and he said, come to Papa. And he meant it. I mean, there was not a dry eye in the house. It was like, and he would say stuff like that. Stuff like that, people would ask him, what do you think? I mean, this enormous love and respect they have for you. I mean, did you ever expect that? And he said, no, I never expected that. And in fact, he said, I try not to think about it too much because I think if I did, I'd lose my mind. But he was always very, very touched by the stories of people who really, Star Trek has saved lives, literally saved lives. Yes, sir. Pardon? Carolyn lived another 5 years. She passed away in October of 2000. What is this? 2006, 2004. And she never did get out of the hospital. Generally, if you fall and break your leg when you're 84 years old,